Hey everybody, today we got cooking class. And today what we're gonna make, remember the Aprium jam that we made a while ago? Well, I made a lot of it. So I wanted to find a recipe where I can make something. So today we're gonna make an Aprium crumble. And it makes like crumble bars. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. So what we're gonna do is first things first, we always have our mise en place, which is everything in their place. So I already have everything kind of divvied out to make sure that, I don't have any mess ups or anything like that, or as few as possible. I mean, there's usually something that, kind of catches you by surprise. But, we got our stand mixer here to help mix stuff. We've got our flour and everything, but I'll tell you the measurements as we go. The first thing we have to do, though, is we need to preheat the oven. So I might have to talk a little bit louder during this class, only because the oven can be, as it's preheating, it can be a little loud. So you're going to want to hit bake. It's already set to 350. Then you just hit start. And you can hear it going, and it'll get itself all the way up to 350. Hopefully by the time that we have everything prepared, it might take a little bit longer, but I can always pause the video. I have my recipe right here. So the first thing we want to add is a half a cup of packed brown sugar. So I've got my brown sugar right here in a half a cup. We're going to put that right there in the stand mixer. Boom. For nice sweetness, sugariness. Now the next thing you want to do is you want 1 cup of flour. So here we go. We got ourselves a cup of flour. We're going to add that in as well. Hopefully I won't be too messy with it. There we go. Flour's in. Next thing we have is an 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. That's kind of hard to measure. Most measuring spoons, they only have the smallest they have is a 1/4, and an 1/8 is a half of a 1/4. What they say it's a pinch between your pointer finger and your thumb, and that's kind of an 1/8 of salt. But what I did instead is I just kind of measured it out a little bit. As you can see, this is a 1/4, but I only filled it about halfway. So we'll put that in, and we're good to go there. Now it says what we want is a 1/4 of a teaspoon, teaspoon of both. A 1/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. So what you do is, sometimes it's tough to get out. I usually do this over the sink. But you get it out, you just kind of scrape off the top. Then you got yourself a 1/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. We're going to add that in there. We're done with our measuring spoons. We'll put them right in here. Next we have 1 cup of rolled oats. Here are the oats. They're ready to go. So again, that's 1 cup rolled oats. We're going to put that in there. And this is what our Aprium jam looks like in the jar, But like I said, I got 3 jars out of this. I gave 1 away, and I still have 2 in there. This one I've had some of, but, I want to make sure it gets used. Didn't do all that work for nothing. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to add half a cup of butter. Now, half a cup of softened butter, half a cup is a stick, just 1 stick of butter. So what I did last night is I took out some butter from the fridge. I opened it up like this, so it's been sitting out, and then it should actually fall in easy. If you leave the wrapping all around it, what's going to happen is it's going to be really difficult to open once it's soft. But if you do it while it's hard, it actually kind of comes out quite easily. So here we go. Well, we'll see. We're going to take our stick of butter and we're going to drop that all in there. Bam, a lamb. I'm going to throw this away. Alright, so we've got all our ingredients added. That is a good thing. Now, this, when it's the softened butter, you don't really need a stand mixer. It's just I don't use this that often. What you could do, since the butter's softened, you could whisk it in or just kind of smash it in there. Move it around with your hands till it's a crumble. And then go from there, you know. But once it's nice and crumbly, that's what we want. But for this, what we do is we put this down. Got to lock it in place. I want to make sure that the level's not too high. So we'll start on 1 and start really slow with this. And then usually what I have, so I'll have something like this. I'll set this over here. Just to kind of break things up as it goes. So we let this kind of, you know, rotate around. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. We want to get a nice crumble and everything mixed together. And that's why you want the softened butter. If this was hard butter, this would take a long time. And it would actually kind of clump up. Even this with the soft butter is kind of clumping up a little bit. So we'll speed it up a little bit more. Really get that butter in there. Now it's starting to look more like a crumble. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it off for now. Unlock it. You can see all this goodness that's on there. Butter. Then I'm going to pop this off. Just kind of get it in there and go by myself. Oh, it fell. Again, we want a crumble mixture. Kind of spin everything around, get everything to join together. You want to kind of warm up that butter even more. Like I said, even after it's been sitting out all night, it's still kind of hard. Alright, starting to look more like a crumble. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back in here. Should use both hands. Get it to lock into place like that. Lock it again. And we'll start slow. Our oven's ready to go. That's a good sound. I figure at this point we should just whisk it kind of hard. Now that's looking like crumble. I wish I could show you, but it's crumbling up. You can see the butter getting infused in there. And then we turn it off, push this stuff back down, because what it does is it clumps up on the sides. So what you want to do is get everything back down in the middle. Alright, and we're going to start again. I'm just going to go slow and eventually to high. If you start on high, it'll kick up at you. This is why I got this on, just in case. My apron, not my belly. Alright, I think that's starting to look pretty good. Let me show you what it looks like. So what we got in there is we got a crumble. I think I might put it in for one more run, just to kind of get this butter down, but I think this is actually the consistency we want. And I'm hungry, so, you know, I kind of want to get this in the oven. So maybe we'll just go from here. But it looks nice. It looks like a crumble because it's all crumbled together. So again, that's what a crumble looks like. It's nice and crumbled. And there's butter in there, there's sugar in there, there's all sorts of goodness in there. And soon we will have our jam. Okay, so we're done with that part. Now what we got to do is you take an 8 by 8 inch pan. This is 8 by 8. And what you want to do is you want to grease the pan. The reason you grease the pan is so that when you put it in the oven, you know, it's because you also have to put the foil over it. Then you don't want the foil to stick, because then what happens after that is foil sticks, it'll start to stick to the crumble. And then you have bits of foil, and then you have to kind of like layer it off. So we're gonna grease this pan. I hope I have enough of this, but I always have a backup plan. But what you do is you take something like this, if you have a spray. Actually, I'll show you 2 ways of doing it. No, this is a class. So the other way of doing it is I usually use olive oil, and this is also olive oil. And what you can do is you just open up the olive oil. You're going to take your pan, and you're just going to put in the olive oil. Light, not too much. You don't want a ton of it. So I put a little bit in there. Then what I'll do, I'll just take a paper towel, and I'll just kind of wipe all around. Move the oil to each part of the pan. And you can do this on the foil as well. You know, spray is easier. It doesn't make it better. It's just faster. And here we go. And you want to get like every corner and try to make it as even as possible, because any part could really stick to this. So here we go. It's looking good. And then I'm going to take this thing and throw it away. And I'm going to wash my hands. I got a little bit of olive oil. That stuff is slicker. And if you really want to try this, I can send you the recipe if all my instructions weren't too clear. But I can definitely send that out. So we've got this done. Now we're going to take our foil. I usually do the light side up. I heard somewhere that it makes it bake faster. Just the reflection or the refraction of everything hitting this kind of bounces around and heats it more evenly. I've also heard from other people that that's a bunch of malarkey, and that I don't know what I'm talking about, but I've heard both. So I figure I'm going to stick with it till it doesn't work for me anymore. Okay, I want to make sure that this is evenly spread out. Okay, there we go. Put all this down in there. Now again, what we got to do is we got to grease the foil. The reason we have to grease the foil, again, is so that the crumble, even though it's got butter in there, we don't want it to stick. And we don't want any of that foil to actually get stuck to it. So again, we're going to take, this time I'm going to try the spray and see how it works. Supposed to shake it up. Like I said, it's a bit easier. to do it that way. I'm still going to take this and kind of make sure that each spot got hit. Okay. That looks pretty well greased up, which is a good thing. And I don't want to take too much grease off of there. In fact, at the bottom, I think I took too much off, so I'm going to put a few more sprays. Okay. Now what we get to do is we get to add our crumble. What they would say to do is you want 2 cups of the crumble. So here's one, basically. And we're going to put that into our 8 by 8 inch pan. Here's another. And put that also into our 8 by 8 inch pan. I'm going to put a little more in only because I missed kind of the tops of some. But I still want to leave some for the rest. Okay. So now we've got our crumble in there. See? Then you're going to want to pack it around to the sides. Pack it in there pretty good, so it makes a nice crumble. Nice and packed in. Because again, you want to even it out. Make sure it's kind of even. You know, everything, as long as it's even, it's going to make it a lot, you know, everything's going to be uniform once you actually take it out of the oven. You know, if you have a clump here and a clump there and you just dump it in there and just, you know, I'm just going to throw it together, it doesn't work out as well. Alright. So we got ourselves that. Now what we get to do is take our Aprium jam. Well, let me show you what this looks like. See, nice and packed in. Nice and even. We're going to take our Aprium jam and we are going to pour it on there. I'm just going to kind of go in rows. Now on the recipe it says to use 3/4 of a cup. Well, I figure what's 1/4 of a cup more, so I did 1 full cup. Because I'd rather have more jam than less jam. I don't know about y'all. What I'm going to do is find, yep, there he is. Little buddy friend here. What you do with your little buddy is you just scrape the rest of that in there. Alright. And you can do this with all sorts of jam. You know, you can do it with raspberry jam or, you know, blackberry, depending on anything that you've got growing. I'm sure grape jam, whatever you've got going in your yard. They say seedless, but, you know, I kind of like the seeds. That's just me, a little bit of crunch. Alright, so we've got our Aprium jam. And there, now what we're going to do, I'll show you. But we want to even it out. Try to get it to all corners. Make sure it's nice and even. And I always use the back of the spatula. It really lends well to moving things around. But I don't want any side too thick and any side too thin. So, you know, here we go, and we're almost done with it. Like I said, I can always send you all the recipe. You can do this with, you can buy the jam and then just make the crumble part yourself. Like I said, we made all this jam and I wanted to make sure that we actually use it. Alright. Now what we do is we take the rest of our mixture and we put that over the top. Now, I'm just going to sprinkle it with my hands. They're nice and clean. And you can kind of do things a little more evenly when you do it this way. I'll try to cover up as much of this as possible. And again, that butter and everything that's in there is really going to bake on in. So I'm going to dump the rest in here. And again, I like to have things even. So I'll take my spoon again, and I'll go over the top. Now what it says is to bake it for 35 to 40 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll put this in the oven, and then I'm going to stop the video, and then I'll show you the results in part 2 of the class. So part 2 of the class shouldn't be too long, but I'll show you what the results are. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to put it in for 40 minutes because it says 35 to 40 minutes. Oh, yeah. So I'll put it in for 35. I've got a light on the oven, and I'll check it in 35 minutes and see how it's doing. But here we go. I'm going to put this in the oven now. Cross your fingers for me. Hope it works well, but let me show you what it looks like. So it looks like this for now. Take a mental picture. I've got 2 hot pads out on my stove. Just so the minute it comes out of the oven. Now the oven's hot, so when you open it, I usually stand back for a second. Oh, goodness gracious. Somebody that I live with, I'm not saying who, left the pizza stone in that oven. We gotta take that out. Again, you never know. Now we're gonna take this and carefully put it in the middle rack and bake it. Gonna keep it in the middle. And I will set my timer for 35 minutes. I'll hit start, and I will see you for part 2.